Hello. How's everybody today? So today's warm-up is going to be about intonation. And intonation, of course, we're thinking of the jaw, how we control pitch. We control it with the direction of our air, so that is controlled with the jaw and the lower lip. And so today's warm-up is going to be focusing around that. Hi. So the first thing I'd like to do, just because I've had lots of Alexander lessons, I always think it's a good way of starting your practice to do something a little bit about the body without the flute first. And these are things that you can do throughout the day, but sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time, even though it takes only 5 minutes. We want to get onto the flute straight away. And if I give myself just 5 minutes, my practice becomes so much better, having done some proper Alexander work, rather than launching straight in, because things get tired easily and things get tight easily if I haven't warmed up the whole body or that part of the body that I'm going to be using a lot. So for example, I might on another day warm up my arms, do some arm swinging. I might do some head and neck warming up, just depending on, just try and mix it up as well. So yeah, let's try some jaw, just a little bit of massage of the jaw area. So if you find where your jaw starts, the hinge joint, and just hangs off the skull, just around here where your ears are. If you just find here, you can do like this, and just like nod up and down, and then side to side, and then just open and shut the jaw, so you can feel that movement. So the first thing I'm going to do is just massage this part here, because this is often where we start to feel tension if we're overusing or misusing the jaw. And whilst you're doing this, you can add some breathing to help relax the jaw even more. So breathe in through the nose and then just open the mouth and let out like a sigh or a whispered ah is what they call it. So it's just going to be okay, and then we'll just move along the cheekbone area here. So just massage between here and back to the joint. Still doing your breathing. And last one, we're just going to do the jaw line, so going from the joint down towards back here. And you can be quite firm, there's quite a lot of muscle there, so your chewing muscles can get quite tight, so you don't have to be too delicate with the massage here. Obviously don't go over the top. Just keep breathing. So it might look a bit strange, but if you're in your own room, it doesn't really matter. I'm always the one that comes out worse because it's on YouTube. But there we go. Good. So that's a little bit of a warm-up for this area, and you'll feel like all the blood flowing and the muscles will just be more released. And you can do the same thing with the wall and doing the monkey position, just letting the jaw hang even more. That's quite a nice thing to do as well. So you can combine yesterday's body warm-up with this one, and it will be doubly effective. Okay, so now that the jaw is a little bit freer, we're going to talk about how we move the pitch up and down to find the tone that has the most in-tune sound. That's where all your harmonics are lined up and the sound just carries and projects without any effort. It's just very open and free, and it's bang in tune. And the way that you can test it is to do an octave and notice how far the octave is, if it's too wide or too narrow or just in the right place. Okay, so we'll do some pitch bending on a couple of notes, and then once we've found the sound that we think is in tune, where the sound really rings, then test the octave. Okay, so make sure that where you're sitting, that you're nicely aligned as well, because you can do all the pitch bending that you like, but if your head is like this, or it's like too far forward, too far back, you won't get those notes dead in tune all the way up the harmonic series. Okay, so I don't know, pick whatever note you like. I'm just going to do it on a B flat. And I'm just going to blow up. It's going to sound a bit sharp. Bring the pitch down by bringing the jaw back. So it's going to go from like this. It's a very small movement, but it makes such a big difference in the pitch. So don't feel like you have to drop the jaw super far. It's just, you can always think of the lower lip going above the top lip and behind it, and that is connected with the jaw movement, and that's really pretty much what you need to correct pitch. There might be some extremes, but generally it's quite a subtle movement. So let's try just going above the note and below, and then coming back to a sound where you think it's really in tune. Let's do that one more time. Now where you find that sound in the middle there, where it's really resonant, now play the octave from there and see if that octave is really in the right distance. So you hear sometimes if it's a little bit too wide, usually meaning that the lower note is too flat, or you're blowing too low for it. And if it's too narrow, it usually means that your lower one you're blowing too high. So you've got to find that place where the air travels, and then when you blow for the octave, it's a true octave. can almost hear it whilst you're playing. So if you think of your octave before you play it, you'll often get to the right place. And the octave is much easier when you're actually blowing in the right place for the lower note. It's just one of those things. Good, so that's an exercise that you can all try. Let's just do that on another note. Let's go down to an A. Okay, and then one more, G sharp. Often, when we've gone up for the octave, we've got to remember to come back down into that same place for the lower octave. If you stay up in the position of the octave, then the low one comes out sharp. Okay, so we need to come back down. Okay, so this is finding your in-tune sound, the harmonics in-tune tone, as William Bennett would call it. Okay, so that's the first exercise, and that's the sound that you want for all of your notes. So practice pitch bending on every single note. So you could do a variation of your tone exercises, whatever they might be. And just carry that sound all the way down and then all the way up. So that's one variation to the sonority exercise that you could do, just doing some pitch bending. The next point, we kind of touched on it, I think, in a question session, which was the position of the head joint. So getting a harmonics in tune sound is paramount. Second paramount thing is that your head joint is in the best place for your flute to ring with its best balanced sound. Okay, so we talked about if you're all the way pushed in, then these notes are going to be sharper and they'll be more affected than these notes. It will all get a little sharper, but the notes closest to the head joint are more affected. And then if you're pulled out a lot, these notes will get quite a lot flatter, and these will also get flat, but to a lesser extent. Okay, and we do this test with the harmonic of C, C sharp, and D with its octave, and testing the real fingering. So we find out if the flute is balanced and in tune with itself. So we don't adjust anything. We do the harmonic of C, we switch to the normal C, and listen really carefully. So intonation, we need the flexibility of the jaw, but we also need a really keen awareness and keen ear to listen for every tiny detail. Okay, so it just takes practice to get used to listening to those slight differences in pitch. So let's just try 3 notes. We'll do low C first and then test the C. Okay, and I'll just show you when it's out of tune. See, I didn't change here, and I could have done, tried to get that back up to pitch, but that's not testing your flute. That's just testing your ear. So you've got to be quite strict with yourself and not do any adjusting. So back, push the head joint back in to where it might be in tune. And I usually mark on my head joint a little line where I usually pull it out to, where the balanced position is. Okay, and that doesn't mean it's always going to be there, but it gives me a rough idea of where it might be. And a day like today, it's quite cold, so you're likely to be a bit flatter than usual, or if it's a hot day, it could be sharper. So, and as you get warmed up, it might change a little bit as you get warmed up and the flute warms up. It goes sharper, so you have to just be constantly aware of that and listening to your pitch. Okay, so let's try that again for the C. Good, and then we'll go up to C sharp. One more time, that one. And you might notice that between C and C sharp there's a slight difference, and your C sharps might be higher than the harmonic when your C is dead on in tune with its harmonic, and that's because a lot of flutes have an issue with C sharp due to the position of the tone hole and the size of it and all those kind of reasons, which are quite complicated. But basically you just have to be aware that C sharp is one of those notes that isn't going to always be in tune when the flute's set up. So you might have to just adjust that note with a little bit more pitch control than the others. Okay, or you can find a compromise with the head joint position. So if you pull out a little bit more, your C is going to be a little bit flatter than what it would be normally, but then your C sharp is more manageable. So you can find that as your balance point. Okay, but then let's try D as well, and this should be in the right place. Okay, so try those three notes as a little check to where your head joint position is. And so that's where it normally is for me. As I get a bit warmer, I'll probably pull out a little bit more. Okay, so that's the second thing. The next little exercise I like to do for intonation is doing intervals, because even if you play every note that's bang in tune with the tuning machine, that doesn't mean you'll be in tune. So if you have a chord, let's say someone's playing an A, and you have a E above that, the perfect fifth needs to be slightly sharper than it is on the tuning machine to make that interval a true perfect fifth. So it's not equal temperament, it's just intonation. And so that's, in my book I have a little table of all the little corrections that you have to do for certain intervals. So, and I've done a little thing here as a guide. So if you're playing a C and all these notes above it, I put a little arrow above, either with a little down arrow or an up arrow, and that tells you where you need to position that note for it to be really in tune. And when you're practicing that at home, you can just put on the tuning machine a pedal of any note, or you can find an app on your phone or on YouTube. So I've got one on YouTube here, and it might not be entirely reliable, but you can still get some use out of it. So I just found tuning note A440, so I've got an A, and you just play that, and then you start to do some intervals above it. Okay, so and then it's just going on to B flat there, but so the perfect fifth needs to be slightly wider. Minor third needs to be a bit higher, so you could do that note again and just play a C natural above it. So if you play it normally, the difference tone isn't in tune. And if you do that quite loud with the pedal note, you can really hear the difference tone, which is the C, take away the A, we get the sound of a low note, and when that's in tune, the interval is in tune. So minor third needs to be raised, major third needs to be flattened. So with an A and a C sharp, which likes to be sharp, you have to do quite a lot more pitch control. So that means using your jaw, bring the pitch slightly lower. So your C sharp might be here, but actually you need to blow if you've got an A above you. So that's something to practice. Just play a pedal note, just keep it going. You could put it on with earphones if you want, but it's better, I think, to have the whole sound, and experiment with how much you need to adjust certain notes to get them in tune. Okay, so that's that one. Then you can apply that to scales. So EJ1 in Tafnalangova and EJ2, we have 5 notes, and the first scale system is the G, like perfect fifth. So if you practice really good intonation in your scales, lifting the fifth each time, then we hear this really pleasing quality. If you don't lift the fifth, you can hear that it's just not quite there. So you have to just go, like, follow the notes with your lips. So let's just try G major, thinking of raising the fifth and then coming back down for the G. Good, and then with the next one, it's slightly different because it's a diminished fifth. So we have the and the diminished fifth has to be a little lower than normal. So first one you lift for D, and then the second one you have to bring it down a little bit for the D flat. And then the next one will be A flat major, and you lift for E flat. So let's just try that one after G major. So it's G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and make sure the D flat is nice and low. And then you're ready for the next one, so let's carry on. Lifting for the E flat now, for A flat major. once you get into the higher register, we can start to incorporate harmonics to help us listen out for that pitch. So if we did D harmonic, and you get an A as the third harmonic, you can then compare that with the main two notes of that scale. You see, it wants to be slightly lower than that harmonic, so just keep blowing a little bit higher. Okay, and then you can try the next two, E flat and B flat. Next two, E and B. F and C, last one. Okay, so that's a little exercise you can do to really make sure that your fifth note is nice and high. And yeah, do that with other intervals as well. And finally, just before that, there's examples in repertoire with fifths that commonly sound flat. First one would be the Ravel Mother Goose, second flute solo. That E always sounds a little bit flat. Well, not always, but so just make sure that the E is high enough there. And the other one is the Bizet Carmen entr'acte. So that B flat tends to be a little flat as well. So just test it against your harmonics and see if that's in the right place. That's quite a good thing to try. So those are some examples. You can probably find lots of examples for all the other intervals as well, but the fifth is commonly the one that isn't quite stretched enough. And yeah, and the last point being, we did cover this quite a lot, but just another thing to add to your intonation practice is, of course, doing diminuendos and not going flat at the end. So the thing that I like to try is just to do loud to soft and listen to how much the pitch changes. So it really depends how loud and how soft you go. So you don't care about what the pitch does, just play an A. Okay, and then you know I need to blow down this much and then need to lift the pitch this much because the pitch moved from up here this much and then down this much. So it depends how much your pitch moves when you blow loud to soft. So practice playing out of tune. I know it sounds weird, but listen to what it sounds like and then you know what to do to correct it. So I'll just do a few more. So you can count as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's try and correct it. So blowing down. Okay, and just be careful, even right at the end, you might be doing really well, lifting, and then just at the end, sometimes we hear that, just right at the end, and that's such a shame. So you have to keep following all the way to the end of the note. So your harmonics in tune sound can continue through any dynamic, any colour, and that is your core sound, and that's something that you have to hold on to. So yeah, there's 5 exercises there, and you can try those out and see if that helps with your pitch. If you want to read this chapter 8, it's all in this book. If you have that book already, great. If you don't, you can get it at the shop, Just Flutes, or you can contact me directly. So I hope that's of use. Tomorrow I think we are doing Don Juan study number 3, and then it's going to be Poulenc Sonata on Thursday and questions on Friday. So I look forward to seeing you then.